All right, everybody, welcome back. HSC Podcast number 27. Today we are going to talk about some fantasy football stuff and a little bit of football. So it should be a good episode today. Of course, on the mic, Big Box Steve, Derek, the Big Smooth, and again, Fresh Wes. Wes is in a different seat every time. Did you notice that? He's always sitting something else.
Yeah.
The captain's chair just changes every day.
Yeah, it's funny. I was looking back at some of the older videos, and it's like sometimes on the couch, and sometimes he's at the table.
Well, it's just like I get it. I don't have my office ready yet, so it's just like it's just I'm in transition still. So,
Yeah, he'd be taking one outside, out in his backyard.
I tried that; it didn't work.
Oh, okay.
I would figure he'd be out there barbecuing and trying to, have the grill right here. And he's like,
podcasting and barbecuing. All right. So jumping right in, before we jump into the fantasy football stuff, I want to talk a little bit about the preseason. So you guys, how's your Raiders preseason been? And also just like, talk about a little bit about the preseason that some fans might not understand. So how the Raiders doing?
they are who I think they are. I mean, their offensive line is going to have issues, but other than that, I mean, hardly any of the other starters are really playing. So, I mean, it's just all about getting depth. But yeah, the offensive line, that's going to be an issue.
Well, you could tell holes, even with the backups, right? So if the backups are playing backups and they're still, not doing well, that means that the guys ahead of them might not be that good either. So there is, preseason, obviously you don't get a lot of the starters. You do get to see team game plans, you get to see tendencies, things like that, which is kind of nice for the coaches.
Right. Well, plus it's, new head coach, new offense, new defense. So it's more about, figuring stuff out. They're 2-0, so
yeah,
that means anything.
Not really. The Bears are 2-0. They're going to be awful. So
yeah, but they've had the Seahawks.
Yeah, well, it's good. I think most fans and see, sometimes you guys agree with this. They do like the preseason. They watch it, but an average fan probably doesn't understand what it's really about. And it's really about, for me, finding those backups to your good players, covering yourself for injuries. It's a good time to learn repetition of your plays and practice not making mistakes, things like that. And it's for some of these guys, it's whether they get to play in the NFL or not. And so I think there's a lot of good things about the preseason. Not just, I don't get to see my big time stars play all the time.
Right.
How do you feel about the preseason, Wes?
I watched a little bit of the Pittsburgh-Seattle. I was out traveling yesterday and stopped at some places, watched some of the Pittsburgh-Seattle game. It was actually, it was actually fun to watch. There's, physical play, actually some actual hitting. Pickens had a sweet catch in the corner of the end zone. Just dropped it down to him, and Pickens played really well, and I was pretty impressed. But yeah, that game was pretty good. The Raider Jacksonville game was, I wasn't surprised the Raiders won because it's Jacksonville. But
Jacksonville is the surprise team, though, Wes.
Oh yeah,
based on preseason.
Yeah. Well, if you're going to spend all that money, they better be the surprise team. The only problem is they play in the AFC. And maybe that's, AFC South is still going to be tough. So good luck to Jacksonville there, But I still like that stat you sent me, Derek. Dallas, one conference championship appearance in the last 20 years. Jacksonville 3.
Yeah.
That's funny.
And keep in mind, when Jacksonville was coming in, Dallas had just won some Super Bowls. It was on the back end of a down slope, getting ready for a rebuild.
Get rid of that Jimmy Johnson guy. He's no good. It's like, that guy's terrible.
So they spent quite a few years there on their rebuild. And
yeah.
they've had plenty of chances in the last few years, 10 years, they just can't pull it together.
Perpetual 8-8.
I mean, look at some of the, playoff games. Look at last year, even, they run out of time at the end of the game, but they're in that game with San Francisco. San Francisco ends up, beating them.
What did you think about, Steve, the, first possession, the Bears, and their kind of their play calling when Justin Fields, did you watch the first series?
Yeah, I like a little bit from what I've seen so far of them moving him out of the pocket. They had a couple good PA rollouts where they're getting him on the run, which he does really well. He probably one of the better quarterbacks in the league at getting his hips around and throwing when he's on the run, especially when he's moving, left as a right-hander. He points his shoulder really well. So I think it's a good idea for them. Big thing with Justin Fields there, he talks about is, does he try to get out of the pocket too quickly? Does he got happy feet, and not want to get hit? And the reality is, if you got beat up like he did last year, you'd have happy feet too. So
he kind of got in an awkward position on that first drive. I'm like, no, throw the ball away, run for your life. Do not get hurt in the preseason like Zach Wilson. Gee,
you never like to see that, right? You don't like to see anybody get hurt in the preseason, but as Tyler Lockett said in the game, they interviewed him. He's like, hey, look, I want more than 3 plays. I understand getting hurt, but I got to practice this stuff. I put in the work. Like, I need a few more plays than that. And so that's the tough balance about preseason, is how much can you work guys versus what's the risk of injury.
Well, especially wide receivers, where they're just running, right? I mean, they're going to get injured no matter what, if it's, ACL or whatever, Achilles, from just running. So it's not like they're linemen or running backs and then in the middle of it getting hit a bunch.
Yeah, and that's a tough balance, but then the preseason is not as exciting for some people to watch, when you say, hey, well, it's on our starters, we don't even know. So I guess the moral is, can you really learn anything from the preseason about what the season's going to look like?
Well, for me, segue here is, it's good for deep fantasy leagues, like dynasty leagues. I'm in a dynasty league, and I drafted, because we had a rookie draft, I drafted Velvis Jones. And I was like, well, we'll see. And he looked pretty good today.
Right.
So it's one of those where you're like, you find those diamonds in the rough that you can stash on your roster. If you have a deep league, like a dynasty league, you're like, oh, maybe not this year, but next year they might turn out to be something.
Yeah, and later in the preseason, you'll get more reps out of the first teams than the second teams. And so I think later in the preseason, for what you're talking about, is really good, because now you can get those second tier guys, or maybe third tier guys, and get a few more looks at them and help them on your fantasy team. So yeah, let's transition into the fantasy here for you fantasy football players. So whether you dynasty leagues, or just round each year league, there's PPR leagues, there's different types of leagues, but really I think the PPR has become the most popular. Pretty much everybody's doing some version of that, and so that's kind of what we're going to focus on. And we're going to talk about different positions. So we're going to talk about quarterback, running back, wide receiver, tight end, looking at who's top right now, what you guys think about those tops, and maybe talk about some guys we could see down the road for people that they might look out for. Cool. So let me pull up this site real quick here. So we're not really using any specific information. There is this one site that we're going to kind of look at their top ties, but you've seen some of these kind of mixed around if you look at ESPN or Yahoo or wherever you play. So you might these might be the same top tiers that you're thinking, but they're still going to be up there. All right, so just kind of quarterback at first. So before we jump into the quarterbacks, do you guys have a strategy around when you draft your quarterbacks? Like, what would you recommend to people, or what's your strategy there when you're talking about drafting a quarterback?
Well, if we're just doing a standard PPR league,
let's say standard 8 to 10 person league. Let's assume that for everything we talk about.
Okay. Well, I'm not worrying about quarterback at all then. I'm getting all my running backs, receivers, and tight ends first before I take a quarterback.
So quarterback bottom of the list in that size league, that type of league.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wes, do you have a preference where you look at quarterbacks?
I usually get, running backs, receivers, and then the quarterback. So
That's kind of standard for your draft style. That's not uncommon. There's definitely, I've seen people that want to get the best quarterbacks, so they do go a little bit earlier than most people. I've seen people take quarterbacks in the first round. That's not recommended usually in most leagues, so I've definitely seen all those. I kind of agree with you guys in the sense that in most of your leagues, your quarterback could be a later pick, right? So for you people drafting or don't know how to draft or want some advice there, don't focus on your quarterback first. You'll probably get a good quarterback later. I think that's kind of what you're going to see for most people say that as well. So quarterback wise, top 5, Josh Allen, Justin Herbert, Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, Kyler Murray. And again, that's according to this certain site. They also rank them on where they're picked, but just talking about those top 5, you guys have any different top 5 of those 5? Anybody else that would be in there that's not?
did you say Tom Brady?
Brady's at 8 right now.
Yeah, I see that.
Burrow's at 7. So, I mean, I look at that top 5 for fantasy points anyway, and that's pretty close. The problem is Burrow and Brady could both throw a lot of touchdowns and for a lot of yards too. And Jackson, Murray aren't always going to get it done on the ground, where they get a lot of their extra lift from on points. So,
well, I would say Mahomes would fall, and I'd put like Hurts or Russell Wilson up there because Mahomes lost Tyreek Hill. He's got Kelsey, which is great. Juju, we still don't know if he's going to be. And does Mahomes can run, but he doesn't run. And that's what I'm looking for is like, these others, Wilson, Prescott, Allen, Herbert, Jackson, Murray, and Hurts, all are going to run.
Right. So you like a quarterback that has the rushing stats to add with their passing stats? Is that what you're looking at?
Yeah. Well, it's just depending on when I'm drafting, because that's what I feel like is later in the draft, you can get a Stafford or an Aaron Rodgers, or even, I think he's not that great a quarterback, but Kirk Cousins, a good fantasy quarterback. Carr, I know he's not Tua. Tua's going to have probably some good numbers. You're going to find someone. This list has Matt Ryan at 20.
Right. Yeah, and he's probably the 20th rated quarterback as far as most picks.
Right. But that's the thing is he'll put up numbers.
Yeah. So how is that different then? So you think quarterback wise, is it because it's just one position and there's, 32 quarterbacks, right, to choose from?
Right. Well, I just think there's only maybe 15 running backs because there's a lot of committees now.
Right.
What are running back committees? So you have to get running back early. Wide receiver on the hand, there should be tons of wide receivers, but that's the thing is you could probably get Tom Brady in like the 6th, 7th round of the draft, and he's going to put up big numbers.
So I guess when we're talking about quarterbacks, you may look further down for that lower pick, but somebody who can get you really great numbers. So outside of the top 5, who would that person be for you? So if you had to look down into the lower tier quarterbacks, who should someone take if quarterbacks go and they haven't really picked quarterback yet?
Well, if I'm going to, there's 2. One I think is more safe because he's a pocket passer and he's got good weapons. It would be Carr. I mean, he's got pretty good weapons around him. So he threw for over almost what he was fourth in the league in yardage last year. So
Yeah.
And the other one, this one's the flyer because I still don't trust him, is Trey Lance.
Yeah, because you don't know yet, right? But he has the potential to score a lot of points.
Yeah.
He can run. He can run. He's going to throw the ball. I saw him in they showed his practice today, and he threw a 50-yard touchdown pass today. And I'll tell you what, it got there in a hurry. And he threw it on a rope, and he's got a cannon. So I have a feeling he has the potential to put up big numbers, but of course it's the 49ers, and I'm not like rooting for them at all. But I think man, he can that throw today. I was like, whoa, like that was.
And then I feel like Shanahan wants to prove a point. Trey Lance is our guy. We're going to center offense around him. Unlike, some other head coach, Matt Nagy, who decided he wasn't going to tailor his offense around his quarterback.
That's why they're at where they're at right now with Fields. So
yeah,
no option. So I think I do like Derek Carr as one of those late round picks. I agree with that too. I do think Kirk Cousins is a very solid late pick that it will be available for people. He's like got 7 in a row, 3,500 yard passing years plus 25 touchdowns. And so I think statistically, if you're just looking for someone late to fill a gap, I think Cousins is a good pick there as well, especially with Jefferson and Thielen if both healthy.
And that's where you always got to look at not who the quarterback is. You got to look at who their weapons are.
Yep.
Because that's where I look at Aaron Rodgers. He might be great, but who's he got to throw to now? I mean,
he might not have that big. That's why he's rated a little lower than historically he would be. I think they've got him down there pretty far.
Yeah. And that's what I feel like. It's like they're talking about them for the Super Bowl, but it's not because of him. It's because their defense and running game now. So, and then you never know. Jameis Winston.
Right. Down in New Orleans, you got Michael Thomas coming back. You got Olave, the new receiver. That can be tough down there. Kamara is always great out of the backfield. So yeah, I think that's a decent pick there too. So we know the story. Quarterback, try to go late. I mean, I guess if I'm getting ready to pick quarterback and a top 5 still there, So I guess that would be my only question, because I've done this before, and this might be a tip for people, is the round before I was going to take quarterbacks and everybody else is going to take quarterbacks. I've snuck in there and grabbed, the top quarterback, and it's paid off. I had Lamar Jackson in a good year, and Josh Allen's going to score a lot of points for you consistently. So that's another strategy out there, is just go one round before everybody else on quarterback, because you'll see how it plays out in most leagues. All right, so let's move over to running backs. So Derek, you said, this is the most important because it's not very deep, right?
Right.
So how do you feel about the top 5 as it stands right now on here? You got Jonathan Taylor, Christian McCaffrey, Derrick Henry, Dalvin Cook, and Austin Eckler.
I'm concerned, like, maybe because Eckler can catch out of the backfield, but I feel like there's too many weapons there. I would be more Nick Chubb.
Okay.
In the top 5.
So Chubb should be up there.
Yeah. And then, I mean, if I'm looking at 6 through 8, there was Mixon, Harris, and Chubb, which all would be good picks. So yeah, I would take it. It just depends on what your preference is, but yeah, the first pick should be a running back.
Wes, how do you feel about those top 5 running backs?
McCaffrey needs to stay healthy, which he hasn't been able to stay healthy. Henry, of course, but again, health. He takes a lot of hits. Jonathan Taylor's the obvious pick, but I just think, he's that's a great pick. It's just that's just no brainer. Eckler, I think there's too many weapons, like Derek said. I like Aaron Jones just because Devontae Adams.
Well, he's gonna get the ball,
and he's going to catch the ball out of the backfield. He's going to get the ball a lot. So that's kind of like my sleeper right there. And Connor, just because, touchdowns.
Yeah.
So
if you have number 1 overall pick in your draft, are you taking Jonathan Taylor?
Yeah. If I have him.
I mean, because both you say running backs are top, right? And Jonathan Taylor is the top running back.
Well, I'm taking Derrick Henry.
So you're taking the 3rd ranked running back. Wes, you're taking Jonathan Taylor?
I'm taking Jonathan Taylor just because of the youth. And honestly, I really would like to take, if I had to take Derrick Henry, of course I would. But it's just the youth factor. And I think they're going to be giving him the ball a lot in that offense. So
I feel like with Henry, though, he was still he missed like 8 games, and he was 9th in the league in rushing.
Yeah.
Everyone talks about, and I get it, it's because Henry's a little older and he got injured. So that's big no-nos. But everyone talks about how great Jonathan Taylor was last year. But if Henry would have played those games, he would have broken the rushing record.
Yeah, he was having a great year. Yeah, so, and I guess that's where health comes in, because technically, like if we're talking about throwing health out the window, you got CMC, who's the highest scoring running back of all of them on an average. If you look at all his fantasy games overall that he actually plays in, he's scoring more points on average than anybody. So maybe is CMC a bad first pick? Why not go Christian McCaffrey?
It's different. Well, the thing with Henry was 1 year. McCaffrey's been 3. It's a lot of years.
Yeah.
And that's where I get with it's like another one, like Saquon Barkley. Do I really trust him? He seems to be injured all the time. Henry had 1 outlier year, I think. He just got injured and was out. But McCaffrey looks really good. But if I'm having the top 5 pick, I can't take him because it's been 2 years where he's destroyed in fantasy teams because he's been the number 1 pick.
Wouldn't that knock him out of the top 5 in this ranking?
Well,
see that, I guess that's where you get to it, because now if you say, oh, I'm going to get Christian McCaffrey 6th or 7th, and then all of a sudden he stays healthy the whole year, you're going to have a good year.
Well, yeah, that's the whole thing, is that you got to take into account. It's your last pick in the draft, take Deshaun Watson, right? I mean, it might be for only 5 games, but they could be 5 really good games.
Yeah, it's somebody that you're getting for free, and just sitting there. I guess it depends on how big the roster is allowed in your draft.
Right.
So I agree. I mean, I'm taking Derrick Henry if I have number 1 overall, for sure. I think he's going to get the carries, he's going to get the touchdowns, more importantly, and that's going to score you a lot of points.
I feel like they have the better team, I think, also.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, technically they should.
And
I think they're very heavy running.
I wouldn't be surprised after week 4 or something that Malik Willis is in.
I mean, he's playing well, but again, like you guys said, it's against backups, so
right.
Really,
but then
you see it.
Yeah, it's a whole other dynamic to that offense.
Yeah, he does.
You see it. I mean, you just see the explosiveness. You see the arm strength. I mean, he looked pretty darn good. First couple series that I saw. It's just,
I think it comes down to how well they play. I mean, you don't replace Tannehill if you're 4-0 or 3-1.
No,
right.
And so if they start 2-2, yeah, maybe you do see Willis come in at week 5 or something. But I think it's a momentum thing. Any smart coach wouldn't pull his starter if he's having a good season.
Well, I'm trying to remember. Was it Kaepernick with Smith? Did they pull Smith for Kaepernick? I can't remember. There was some quarterback they did that for.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think Smith
got hurt.
He might have got
Yeah.
injured. They were kind of playing double anyway. Like Kaepernick was coming in for a lot of run plays and scoring some of those touchdowns, inside the red zone. And then I think it did evolve into him just being the starter. Again, that's pretty rare in the overall. So it just depends. So, but Willis does look really good. I think he has a good future there because Tannehill's almost done. So Derrick Henry is, that again, I think that's a safe pick. I also think, Eckler and McCaffrey could both be worrisome in the top 5, where I think Nick Chubb, especially with the Kareem Hunt stuff going on, Nick Chubb is just going to be pushed more and more into more carries.
Jacoby Brissett.
Yeah. And I think Saquon Barkley, I think, and Aaron Jones, I think both of those are really dangerous picks as far as letting them slip that far, because I think both of those guys could score a lot of points this year. So I might jump quickly on one of those two, especially Aaron Jones, if it's maybe a little higher than maybe a Swift or a Chubb or a Harris.
See,
I think Jones.
I'm like the opposite on that. It was always like, what was it? Matthew Berry would always say, just start feeding Jones the ball, and because they never were. Now, it's like, now we know Jones is great, but AJ Dillon is going to steal some of his carries.
Yeah, I'm taking Jones though for this catching though. I mean, that's the thing. He's gonna catch a lot of balls for a lot of yards. So yeah, he may not get as many carries as say a Chubb or someone else, but I think he's gonna catch a lot of passes, especially touchdowns too. So that's my justification for an Aaron Jones over a higher volume running back. So anybody else, Wes, down there in the running backs that if somebody had a late running back pick? So let's go down a little bit farther. Let's say you've already got your number 1 running back. Who's a good running back that somebody could grab later? You think maybe tier 3, tier 4 running back?
Probably Antonio Gibson for the Washington Commanders, possibly. They got him ranked 55th overall.
Yeah, he's 24 on the running back rating.
Yeah. Penny from Seattle, something like that.
Yeah, I mean, Antonio Gibson, I think, is a solid late pick because he gets touchdowns typically, or he gets the ball in the red zone anyway.
Yeah,
that could be a good secondary pick. Penny, I think, that's kind of that could be good. How about you, Derek? You got any sleepers down there for the?
Yeah, I'm kind of shocked.
Running back.
Well, I'm really shocked that Miles Sanders is ranked 27th.
Right.
Because I'm trying to think who else they have. Right? It's going to be him and Hurts. They're going to probably run the ball a lot.
Miles Sanders had a good year last year.
Yeah, and it's weird. Yeah, he's below like Josh Jacobs, which is kind of crazy because who knows how much carries he's going to get. But the one that's really my sleeper that you could probably get really late is Raheem Mostert.
Yeah.
Because, he's been injured the last few years.
Yeah, that's an interesting one.
But I think went to the Dolphins. Mike McDaniel, his coach in 49ers. He still can run super fast. And so that's going to be really interesting for Tua. I mean, because he's going to need. I mean, look at the other Dolphins running backs. You have Gaskin and Edmonds. They did nothing last year. So I think he might come in and take that position. So with the speed element. And they got him ranked 45th. So, I mean, that's a late pick you can get.
Yeah, that's almost, you're talking flex players and you'll probably get a second running back before him. You wouldn't want to
Yeah.
take him too early. Because I mean, even those late, like Elijah Mitchell in San Francisco, he's going to get the ball a ton. Brees Hall is people are big on him in the Jets because they're going to run the ball a lot, and he's having a really good rookie campaign so far. So
What about
two guys? I think.
What about your guy, Steve?
Dave Montgomery's tough because that's late. It's late for him, but also he does have, he can get injured, but he doesn't always get the catches, the red zone touchdowns. So he's not typically a really high scorer, but he can be. We don't know with this new offense, so I think there could be a potential steal in Dave Montgomery, depending on how they play. What play calls they make for him. I think that's what hurt him most is like points wise anyway, it's like, oh yeah, it's, 2nd and 2 on the 2 for, let's do some other play instead of giving Montgomery a chance and then run something on 3rd down,
You don't have to worry about Nagy anymore, Steve.
Yeah. So I mean, Montgomery, I think is a good pick there. Then you get into some of these guys, like, what about these, later backups, how's like a Tony Pollard or a Melvin Gordon? You talk about the split time. Tony Pollard might see split time again if Zeke's not producing. So that might be something. I looked at those two as people that I might look at as a flex position, for a later running back as well.
And then, Singletary for Buffalo.
Yeah, he's way down there, 33.
Yeah.
So what's our running back strategy here? So you guys are drafting. Are you going running back, or how does where you're drafting as far as spot change when you take that? So let's say we talked about first pick. What if you got 5th, 6th, or 7th? How does that change?
Well, I always loved being the last pick of the first round, because then it would be running back. But yeah, 5th or 6th. I guess it always depends on how the board goes, because you never want to reach. So for me, it's always take the best player available. And you take, let's say you're the 5th pick and you take Nick Chubb. Then you come back around. So you'd be what, the 15th pick?
Yeah. Could you go running back again at that time?
Well, if you're looking at 15, you're looking at Connor or Ezekiel Elliott. I kind of feel like you got to, because once you get past those, then you're getting into question marks, right?
Right. So running back might be a strategy from the 5th, 6th, or 7th mid position.
Yeah. And then like the first pick overall might not get a good, depending on how the board goes, they can be like the 20th running back.
Yeah.
Which is Mitchell.
Depends on if people are taking running backs, right?
Yeah.
Depends on how your board's going.
If everyone's doing what we're telling them to do.
So do you agree with that too, Wes? Or would you look at, what other factors might you look at when you're drafting that mid spot? Are you still going running back first, I guess, is the first question.
Yeah, I used to maybe go running back receiver, but it's just because of the touchdown aspect and yardage. I think it would be better just go 2 running backs, even though I really want Jamar Chase, who's sitting 11.
Right.
But it would basically that around that 15th, 16th would be like Barkley or Kamara. And of course, I know Barkley's had his issues, but I just think that it's kind of hard to pass him up because he's going to get so many touches. It doesn't matter whether it's running or catching the ball. And Kamara too. It's just, it's that dual threat of receiving and running and touchdowns. It's hard to pass those two up right there, even though Stephon Diggs is right there. I mean, of course, I want Stephon Diggs because Josh Allen's is you get him the ball, he might have 13, 14 touchdowns, easily.
You're pretty much, so when we go running back in that mid spot, you're also pretty much giving up top receiver, right? Because Jefferson, Cup,
Cup,
Chase, those guys are probably going to go in the top 15.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I guess the hope is maybe you go running back and maybe one of those you can get in the 15th as well as a good running back, right? Then you have a choice, maybe a receiver still left. But is there, maybe you have that 6th or 7th pick, is that a worth taking a chance on a Jefferson or a Cup at that spot?
I mean, Justin Jefferson might have a huge year. It just depends. I guess it just depends how the board goes. I mean, I've done it before and I've never won. I mean, I always got one of the top running backs and top receivers, and I never won. So, and you could see it throughout the year. You see it and you're like, I'm just losing because honestly, I should have picked the 2 running backs first.
Yeah.
So, and it's just
so two running backs. So as we move from the running back strategy there, the overall strategy is 2 running backs, and obviously, depending on how your board looks, you might switch off your second running back for a receiver. But I think it's a good strategy to start with eyeing a couple running backs first as well. There are some other strategies out there, but I think this is a pretty strong one, especially when we're talking running back. So as we transition over to the receivers, I guess this is where that strategy comes into question. If I go receiver early, can I come back then to running back, or can maybe I go receiver, get really crazy and grab a couple of the best receivers? So there's a couple strategies there too. But thinking about the top receivers they got listed here, you've got Justin Jefferson, Cooper Kupp, Jamar Chase, Stephon Diggs, and Devontae Adams. So is that a solid top 5 as far as you guys are concerned?
Yeah, Deebo Samuel's right behind him. I put him in there too because of who knows how many running plays he's going to do.
Well, none based on his contract.
Did it really say in his contract he can't be a running back?
If he goes over 1 carry, he gets $1 million bonus.
Wow.
Well, he's going to probably go over 1 carry.
Yeah, it's something like crazy like that. But I think there is a limitation on his runs too in his contract. They specifically put something in there. But I definitely see him still
then
run the ball.
there'll be a lot of screens to him.
Yeah, those wide receiver screens, which he runs really well. So who would you replace with Deebo Samuel if you put him in the top 5?
It'd probably be Adams, not because I think Adams is the best receiver. It's just, I feel like there's Waller and there's Renfro and there's more. Carr he likes to throw to like 8 receivers a game type of thing. Yeah. So it's tough.
Carr is comfortable, but I mean, with Waller and he's real comfortable
Renfro
with Renfro and Waller. So he might on those 3rd downs check down to them to be safe.
Where you knew Rodgers was going to Adams whenever he needed something because he was his only dependable receiver.
100% of the time. So, yeah, so Deebo Samuel could jump up in there. I think he could replace Jamar Chase. I think Jamar Chase is going to get a lot of double coverage over the top. They're going to be very mindful of Jamar Chase this year. I think he'll still have a good year. Don't get me wrong. I'm just saying if I was going to throw Deebo Samuel up there, I think Jamar Chase could move down a little bit too. Any top 5s in there, Wes, that you don't agree with? Somebody else you think, but how's that top 5 look?
I mean, that's pretty accurate. Just because of, I mean, just last year's, as far as like how many touchdowns and catches they all had. I mean, you could put Lamb in there, CeeDee Lamb, because that he's going to get, I mean, he's going to be their go-to guy, just because, you lost a few, you lost a couple of your number ones and to injury also. McLaurin, of course, but I would put him top 5, but I would definitely look at him as far as like, lack of options for the Commanders. But the only problem is, that the person throwing him the football is always could be a question mark after what we saw last year. Kyle Pitts. I mean, the thing about Kyle Pitts is, I think he's gonna have a huge year. But I mean, don't they line him up like a receiver almost? It's just, I guess he's more like a Waller, but it's just
yeah, I think the top 5 is pretty solid as far as who's going to score points. I think as you round out past that, there are still a lot of good receivers. Like Derek was saying, there's tons of receivers available. Let's talk about this running back strategy. So if I go running back in my first 2 picks, how far down the receiver list am I? And where should I be looking for my first receiver? Or as you guys look at these options, who am I probably going to get as my first receiver, or who do I hope to get?
There's so many options.
Well, I mean, you got to figure by the time you're in the 3rd round, pick 7, some of the receivers are going to be gone, right? So now I'm getting my first receiver. As you're looking down this list, like who's a good number 1 after I've gone running back.
Well, I even just like all the tier 4 are like, I wouldn't mind. I mean, McLaurin, DK Metcalf, Waddle, Deontay Johnson from the Steelers. I mean, we're talking almost number 1s here. Well, that late. So
what's the best receiver, there as far our highest receiver you think goes after you've gone running back? Where do you think somebody's going to be at in the 10? So let's say you're the 5th pick overall, and then you get 15, so it'd be 25, right? Would be. And I'm still thinking you're getting like a Mike Evans or an AJ Brown or a Tyreek Hill at 25. So who's the you got one of those, like who are you going for? Who should somebody go for?
I think it would be Hill.
Tyreek Hill.
Yeah. They put all that money, they traded for him. They're going to get him the ball.
Okay. So after I've got my running backs, I should be looking for Tyreek Hill. Is he going to be available? I don't know.
And if he's not, then I would go Keenan Allen. Everyone sleeps on Keenan Allen, but he's very dependable.
Nice. Yeah, Keenan Allen, and he's rated high. He does a lot. Mike Williams is right up there with him, which is the tough part. 2 receivers in the top 15.
Yeah, but I feel like Williams will steal touchdowns, but Allen will steal receptions. So for PPR, I'd go Allen.
So Wes, if you're on your 2 running back draft here, you got a mid pick, who are you looking at as a 1 receiver? Like who should I have? Who do you have your eye on, or who should they have their eye on?
Well, Mike Evans, I see him at 23 in tier 4. So either that or Tyreek Hill.
So Mike Evans. Would Mike Evans be your pick?
Yeah, if he was available. I think he at 23 he'd probably be available. DJ Moore. I like DJ Moore. I think he's going to get a lot of catches this year. I think as long as whatever quarterback is out there, they push out there, I think, Baker can get him the ball. I don't think that's bad. Of course, Keenan Allen's no brainer, but he's just been doing it so long. It's just like, as long as he stays healthy, I mean,
yeah.
Pittman Jr. is interesting, but I don't know. I'm not quite sure about,
What do you guys think about AJ Brown? Is AJ Brown gonna have good production this year?
He's gonna have to, because what else do they have? And what doesn't?
Devonta Smith is gonna get a lot.
Oh yeah, they got Devonta Smith. So yeah, I don't know, because then Hurts has a thing with Smith.
Right, they've already played together.
Yeah. So I don't know. That's going to be a tough one, because I feel like they're going to be more. See, the Eagles started winning more games when they started running the ball more. So I don't think they're going to open it up at all with Hurts. But AJ Brown put up big numbers with the Titans, who never really opened it up.
Right. Yeah, he had a good. I like the DJ Moore. DJ Moore's always been a good pick for me. I've gotten good points out of him, but I've always picked him later because a lot of people sleep on him. So I don't know that I'd want to be that high up on DJ Moore as my first receiver. I actually might like DK Metcalf as my first receiver because I think he's going to get a lot of looks. So I might jump down to Metcalf depending on obviously who's available. I like Mike Evans if you can get him. It's just a question whether he's going to be available right there after you've gone running back. So
I got a question for you, Steve.
Yeah.
Going by the overall, let's say, and just throwing it out the window, you did running back, and you had a choice between DK Metcalf and Herbert. Who are you taking?
You still got to take DK Metcalf just because, your strategy is based on getting a quarterback late.
Right.
You want to stick to your strategy. I think it's a little early to jump. I think maybe next round, I would consider maybe Josh Allen. But yeah, it's still a little too early to jump at that point, in my opinion. If you're really committed to this, let's get our running backs, let's get our receivers, let's get our quarterback later. So yeah, but I think DK is going to get good points. You have guys like Keenan Allen is definitely safe. We just don't know how much Mike Williams is going to play. Like he's so sporadic. He can have huge games and he can not show up. And so that makes Keenan Allen a little more scary. Plus he's, getting older, as he goes. So he's not the youngest guy on the board anymore. That's a tough one. I think DK Metcalf, I'd still take that as my next pick after my two running backs. Now,
Steve, what about Mooney?
See, I'll be hoping for Mooney in this next one, which would be who's our next tier down. And, right away, I think if you get Mooney as your second receiver,
that's good.
After you went running back, that would be someone I would target because I don't think a lot of people will target him.
Because no one knows who he is.
And they shouldn't, he had his first 1,000-yard season. He's only his third year in the league, but him and Fields really have a good connection, and Fields is going to throw to him a lot, especially when he's in trouble. So I think Mooney is a good person down there in the second round as a second receiver. I also think Adam Thielen would be a good pick as a second receiver because he's gonna be getting the ball a lot. A lot of coverage is going to go to Jefferson, so you're going to naturally have to throw him the ball. So as you guys go down to the next pick, the next tier of receivers, where are you guys at? Who's a good pick down here, and what should people be looking for?
I like Bateman from Baltimore. I think Lamar Jackson, I think he's going to be looking for Bateman a lot this year. I think, he's ranked 68th here in tier 6. Of course, Michael Thomas is right there. That's not a bad one. I think he's going to have a pretty good year. I think stays healthy. So those would be my main ones.
And Bateman's probably definitely going to be available, I would think.
Yeah.
So
because he hasn't really shown anything yet, right?
Right. Except that he's the one receiver, right?
Yeah.
Andrews gone, and I mean, you can't throw to Andrews every time.
No.
Who's their backup tight end?
You could try. You could try.
Yeah.
So Yeah, so I mean, I do think that I think Michael Thomas, he plays all year, healthy. He's way low. He's rated a lot lower than he should be, right? But again, he's one of those question mark guys. So Derek, who do you like down here in the second half for my second receiver?
I'm going with someone who's, a little older now, who I guess he's still only 29, who's never had a quarterback, but he's always produced. Now he's the second option on the Super Bowl champions. I'm going with Allen Robinson.
Okay.
He
And he's not terribly far down there, but
he's there. You got him at 54, so
right.
tier 6. I just feel like he's always been a number 1, but he's never had a quarterback ever.
Right.
And now he doesn't have to worry about being a number 1, and he's going to get you touchdowns, and he's going to catch the ball. So
yeah, my worry would be he might not be there for my second receiver just because people are going receiver a lot these rounds. So that's what I'd be afraid of.
Well, then my next one is going to go with a youngster, Amon-Ra St. Brown.
Okay.
From the Lions.
Yeah. So it's good.
You
put the Lions, like, geez, what are they going to do on offense? Like, they don't have any like superstars.
Well, they got what? Swift, and they got Brown. That's it.
They got Hawkinson, at tight end, but I mean,
they just have a lot of like average players all around. But yeah, he has a chance to do well there, being one of the only real good receivers, I think.
Yeah. Last year, his rookie year, he had 90 catches for 912 yards. So, and he started to come on later in the season.
Yeah. Yeah, it definitely will probably be somebody who's going to be available for your second wide receiver, right?
Although, Hard Knocks, he's becoming a fan favorite. So that might be where people start. The people that don't know too much about football might be like, oh, I've seen this guy talking about all the receivers drafted ahead of him that suck.
Yeah. What do you guys think about a Devonta Smith or a Tyler Lockett here in my second pick, if some of these other guys aren't available?
Yeah, Smith wouldn't be bad. Lockett, I kind of like Lazard because Adams isn't there. You just don't know. Like, Lazard wouldn't be a terrible pick there. But yeah, Lockett, I mean, Lockett's just tough to cover. He just gets open, and you never know.
He's going to throw him the ball.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. Well, I just watched some Geno Smith highlights, and when Pete Carroll's like holding his eyes like this, like, what are you doing, Geno Smith? It's like, actually, you got talent. It's just, not
might
playing.
Be Jacob Eason, dude, after tonight's game.
Oh, you see Jacob Eason in the end zone? Yeah. Like, oh my god, like you might as well have open tryouts for quarterback for the Seahawks right now, because that looks like a 4-win team right there, the way they play tonight.
And then here's the one who destroyed the wide receiver market, got overpaid completely, so he better produce. Christian Kirk.
Right. Yeah, and you don't know what he's going to do yet. He hasn't just had a lot of time to really show anything. So we'll see. I think that comes down to how Trevor Lawrence delivers it. Is he going to look to Kirk as a number 1, or is he just going to see him as just another guy in the system?
Yeah.
I do like, I think, that's interesting that Allen Lazard falls right in there. Like, that could be a good pick. Hunter Renfrow, if you really, as you go into that, you're dropping into that little farther tier. Just depends on how your board's looking. But as you move down, you guys have any receivers that I might pick up as maybe a flex or backups, or who I could steal late? Like, what's a good late steal at receiver? So you look real far down. What do you guys see there?
What you mean after 4, like down later?
It could be any time. Yeah, real late in the draft. You're looking at late flexes, backup cornerbacks, or backup receivers. Like, who can I get late that might be a steal in your mind?
Well, it kind of depends on how people think, but for me, the steal is DeAndre Hopkins. He's going to miss 6 games,
Right.
but as long as if you could pick him up in the 6th, 7th round, because people are like, "Whoa, he's missing games," even though they have him at like what 95th overall, but
He's still
people
a
don't
drop,
usually,
yeah.
yeah. If you can pick him up, then you hold him. Oh well, you have a roster spot with him, but okay, so you just go with someone else in the flex, like
Right.
another flyer. Then week 7, you've got a top 3 wide receiver.
Yeah, if you could get him late enough, right? Because you wouldn't want to go too early, because then
No.
you risk, like, what if one of your receivers gets hurt? You need to have that next guy to come in. So I mean, that's a great strategy, but how many people are gonna be like, yeah, I'm just gonna wait on DeAndre Hopkins, and it's gonna be like the first person with an itchy trigger finger
Right.
is gonna end up with him. I think so. For me, I think later a guy like Devontae Parker is going to get a lot of balls thrown to him and get some touchdowns. He's doing really well into the system. It's already looking good. I think you can get Devontae Parker pretty late as a guy who could step in for you in an injury situation or play a really good flex. And what do you got, Wes?
I was watching that Seattle Pittsburgh game, and I like George Pickens. He had a back corner touchdown toe tapper. He's like 6'3". I mean, he's got really good feet, and he's a big target. He's pretty fast too. I mean, he's getting rave reviews, and during camp and stuff, people are like, he's a freak of nature. So I mean, I know it's Mitchell Trubisky getting the football, but I mean, he's easy to. I mean, I think he's gonna have a pretty good year if he stays healthy. I like that.
He's late, right? So he's
probably
going to be available depending on how early you try to jump on him. Now, and so the trouble there is sometimes we jump on these picks early, and then they don't do well.
No,
we could have had
you could have had
like a Rondell Moore, or a DJ Chark, or a Devontae Parker who was getting the ball regularly, scoring points. But I think Pickens is as good as anybody else there. I think he definitely. What about a guy like Robbie Anderson?
Dotson.
From you look at, he's got DJ Moore on the other side, but Robbie Anderson gets a lot of deep balls.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
anybody else down there you guys like that somebody might be able to get?
Well, the name I've been hearing is like the one that's going to come out of left field is Romeo Dobbs.
Yeah.
From the Packers.
All right.
He's rising up the depth chart. They probably say he's going to be like wide receiver 2 on that team. So
yeah, I mean, you can get him anytime.
Yeah, that's the thing, is you can get him late.
Yeah.
So this is the point we were talking about earlier. You got 2 running backs. You're looking at your 4th pick. You're either getting your 2nd wide receiver, or do you grab a quarterback here, or do you wait for the 5th pick? Or do you wait for the 6th pick because we still have a tight end to get too?
I wait till like 7th pick.
So there's one super late. So it doesn't even matter if Josh Allen's still up there right now. You're just passing.
I just don't feel like the difference between Josh Allen and Derek Carr is that big of a points. There was a statistic out there about I can't remember what the percentage was, but it was mostly how many of the top 5 quarterbacks, how many teams won their championship with that quarterback, and it was a minuscule amount.
Right.
Unless you get like back when Peyton Manning had that amazing year where he just went off and like was setting records, I think you got to go with more consistency.
Just doesn't affect it enough, right? You're saying is,
yeah. Well, I feel like if we're gonna segue to tight ends,
Yeah.
There's like 5. And after that, it's like a huge drop off.
So do you have to go tight end maybe here instead of receiver for that 4th pick? Or do you look at tight ends even earlier than that? Like, how do you guys look at your tight end?
Well, if you can get after you take a receiver 3rd and your 4th pick overall, and you can have Kelsey, Andrews, or Pitts, you take them, I think.
Well,
Because that's like a huge advantage.
Kelsey's typically go first round or late second or early second at the worst. He's got he always gets drafted early. I rarely see him stick around.
Well, I mean, still, if you can get Andrews or Pitts, because people are taking all running backs and wide receivers, you got to take it.
Right. Again, it's still, what your board looks like is going to matter, but it's, if you're looking at like this overall and you're in that 4th round pick, seat 5, most of those tight ends are gone.
Right. If you go past Waller, like if it's Dalton Schultz as the next available tight end, then you're taking best available receiver or running back, I think.
So at this 4th spot, because Kyle Pitts could definitely be there based on just the overall rankings, right? If you were just basing off that, Kyle Pitts would be someone you'd take instead of a 2nd receiver there.
Right.
Wes, how do you feel about tight end at that spot?
Yeah, I agree with Derek. If Kelsey, Andrews, or Pitts is available, you take them. If they weren't available, if Josh Allen, Josh Allen was there, I'd think about taking a Herbert, someone like that. But yeah, I agree. I mean, it's, again, I really want to take Josh Allen or even Mahomes because you just never know. I mean, but the safer pick would be one of those 3 guys that are available. And I think Pitts would be available in most leagues. So
yeah, it's going to be, it depends on the league too, right?
Yeah.
Of course, there are people who like tight ends. I've seen heavy tight ends leagues where tight ends go real quick, a lot faster than you would assume. Because what happens is a couple tight ends go and then it becomes like a snowball effect. Everybody's like, oh man, I got to grab a tight end. And then after you get to those first good few ones, and then it's like, then nobody ever drafts a tight end for another 6th round, right? So assuming that this overall is pretty correct, you got Kelsey, Andrews, Pitts, Kittle, and Waller. I don't see a lot of, anything wrong with that top 5. I don't see anybody else that I would necessarily bump up in there. Hawkinson could have a good year. I think Schultz down in Dallas with the loss of Cooper and just how he's re-signed and he's looking pretty good. Schultz could be a good pick as well.
I think everybody's sleeping on Waller to a certain extent because of Adams, but I mean, you just never know. I mean,
he is a mismatch.
They'll be rolling over on Adams probably the whole year, and that's you got to pick your poison. Okay, we're gonna roll over Adams. We're gonna roll. We're gonna basically press a Waller, and then Hunter River goes open, or it's they're gonna cause teams. And I said this before. I think I said the last time. Josh McDaniels is going to schematically set up the offense to Derek Carr's all his strengths and limit his weaknesses as much as possible. I think it's going to be a big year. So Waller,
is Waller someone you'd take over maybe a Kittle or a Pitts? So let's say you get to this pick and you got Pitts, Kittle, and Waller available. Who are you taking?
I would probably still take Kittle just because of lack of options to a certain extent. I mean, but yeah, it's kind of.
Well, and Pitts is the number 1 receiver on the Falcons, and Mariota is or Ritter is gonna throw to him a bunch. Drake London's there now, but he's a rookie, and how sometimes rookies deal with being, so
right.
Pitts is a freak of nature, and he's the number 1 option. Kittle is very dependable. Everyone forgets about him because he's been injured
Yeah.
lately. But he's their most dependable receiver. Deebo Samuel is awesome with what he does, but if I'm taking like Kittle's their receiver. Like if they need a third down, it's going to be Kittle.
Right. Yeah, and I think Kittle, he's definitely produces, and he has some big games from time to time. So he can bring you, 30, 40 points in a game,
Right.
Pretty easily.
And that's the thing with Waller. Even last year with Gruden, yeah, he will get, I feel it's going to be the same way. Some games he's going to get 10, 12, 15 targets, and other games he's going to get 5.
Yeah.
Because they have so many other weapons and they can use them in different ways. They can use them as a decoy. You can have him double team and then someone else is open. Where like the Falcons, what other options do they have?
So I mean, let's assume we're in this. We went running back, receiver. Now we got to take a tight end, right? And you're looking at you're usually going to be out of those top guys.
Mm-hmm.
So we're down in that, at least Kittle or worse. So let's assume Kittle's even gone. Who should somebody be looking at there in the tight end position? What might be a good steal in the tight end in case you have to go a little deeper? So who should we be looking at there? And we're going to assume we're past Kittle.
Well, let's just say assume we're past Waller too.
Right. Well, yeah, Waller, Kittle.
It all depends. Now you're going to go against me now and be like, what quarterbacks are available?
Oh, so now you're coming back to quarterback? Yeah.
It depends here now. Well, for me,
you said quarterback 7th round.
Well, here's the thing. Honestly, I'm taking probably another receiver or running back in the 5th round.
Oh, okay, so you're going to wait on the tight end again. So
yeah,
that's okay. So then, assuming you're waiting on tight end, who are you looking for? What's a good player that they should be looking for? Be like, well, this is who I need to keep my eye on and make sure they're there since I'm waiting on my tight end.
I got a few that are, because I feel like once you get past Waller, I mean, Schultz, Goddard, Hawkinson, Knox, and they're, but they're going to disappear too. So there's no consistency left. So then I'm looking at way down. I'm going Tonyan from the Packers.
Yeah.
Austin Hooper from Tennessee. And Ushama from the Jets.
Yeah, I like Tonyan. I think that's a good late round that I think Rodgers is going to use a little bit of a safety blanket. I think that's a good pick there. What about Njoku? How do you guys feel about that pick? I think he's pretty consistent there. And if you're really late, I mean, I've had him before.
Yeah.
But honestly, for my strategy, I'm trying to get a Dalton Schultz or better, really a Waller or better if I can. Right. I really like having a top 5 tight end. So I might be more apt to take my tight end in that 4th round scenario, possibly 3rd round, depending on how people are picking. It just depends on what's happening. I've had different leagues, but yeah, 4th round is probably when I'm going to eye one of those top 5 tight ends.
Yeah, I agree. If you can get one of those top 5, that's always ideal, because they are it's such a difference in points.
Right. And to be honest with you, as you look at going with your strategy, maybe going back to running backs and receivers and waiting for those real late picks. I mean, there's still some people like Mo Alley Cox always puts up numbers, and that's a late tight end that you can get a good, some good numbers out of. I think Irv Smith out there, he definitely can score some points. He's not always going to be taken real early. So there are some good people out there. And then I think Tanyan's going to have a better year than he's had in the past. And people are talking up Evan Ingram as a steal or out in Jacksonville.
Well, and then Cole Kmet.
Right.
He's Fields' safety blanket, right?
Yeah, and he's coming around, so that could be a good pick as well, I think, especially considering not a lot of people are going to take him. So I like that, the tight end. So the tight end strategy, if I can get a top 5, try to do it there in that 4th round. If not, maybe wait. Try to steal someone later. It's always dangerous with a tight end because what you don't want to do is be swapping out tight ends all year.
Right.
That's always a pain. So that's the strategy. And now we come back to quarterbacks. And so we talked about the quarterbacks, but now you're this late in the draft, and that's when you're trying to get your, as you said, Derek Carr. You even throw James Winston out there. So quarterbacks don't matter.
Yeah, because they don't even have. Well, that's when I'm looking at this list where they have Carr at 108. So
yeah, and so that again, that's one of those late round picks for you.
Right.
So that's the strategy. So for everybody listening, I think we're all pretty close on our strategies there. I think it's not an uncommon strategy. I think if you want to get dangerous, depending on what pick you get. So, and I'll just throw this one out there for people. If you get a late round pick in the 1st round, if you could go back to back like Jefferson Kupp or Jefferson Chase. Sometimes it's good to steal 2 good wide receivers in that back to back as well. It works for running back too. So a lot of times you get that late pick, you get to pick the 2 running backs in a row, but you're also not getting a top running back. Where you can get the 2 best receivers on a late 1st round pick.
How did that work out, Wes?
Which one? Oh,
Antonio Brown, Julio Jones.
Yeah. That one year that Antonio Brown basically tore it up and I got to the playoffs, but then of course lost. But yeah, those were back in the days where I was like, I'm going to try it. And it just didn't work out this way I planned.
You made the playoffs.
Yeah, all you need is a chance, right? Just like
well, that's the thing. You make the playoffs, but you never win. I mean, you just you're like the yeah.
I've seen the strategy work. I've used it myself, not a lot, but I've seen a lot of people go real receiver heavy and do well with it. The thing about the receivers, it's like catches, yards, touchdowns. It's a passing league these days. It's a lot of high scoring games. So receiver can be a good tactic too. So that's our breakdown there of the fantasy football this year. Hopefully for those of you listening, you took some notes, got some good tips there. It's going to be interesting to see, how some of these players hold up. Do they get injured? How are these ratings going to play out by the end of the year? Because you just never know with fantasy football, and that's the tough part. It's a lot of guessing, a lot of hoping that your players don't get hurt. You spend more time saying, why don't you throw him the ball and get the touchdown or don't get hurt than you do actually watching the game.
Yep. And you could be like me, who in my dynasty league traded 2 1st-round picks and Jalen Waddle for Derrick Henry. And then he got hurt the next week.
Right. Well, and again, that's the thing with fantasy football, man. You always, that one injury or those couple injuries just could derail your season. Yeah. I guess that's fun at the same time, but that's what makes it interesting. So thanks for listening, everybody. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Of course, you can hear us on audio on Spotify and Anchor and Apple Podcasts. Watch the YouTube video. Derek, final thoughts, fantasy season, football season. What do you got?
Well, High Society is going to be doing trying to do a fantasy football league. So if any of you listeners or viewers want to get involved, just leave in the comments and you're like, hey, I want to join this league to see if I can take you guys down.
Yeah, can you beat the experts? Wes, final thoughts?
I'm not an expert on it. I mean, quite honestly, I'm just not. I've never won, and so, but I love betting on games. I was good like 10 years ago betting on games. Now I'm just not as good. So, but yeah, let's do it. We
Yeah,
need what, 7 people?
Yep.
fantasy football's never experts, you know. I mean, I've seen people who know nothing about football win every year, you know, in some leagues. It's crazy. That's what makes fantasy football fun. So for people who don't play, if you're interested in playing, you can use this video as your reference and get on a team, have some fun playing some fantasy football. It's going to be a great season. Can't wait. New season of HSC Podcast rolling into football season. So we're going to have a lot of football stuff coming up. Thanks for watching. We'll see you guys next time.